Right?
Okay.
Okay, so sorry. All right, let's go. Last 10. Hi. Welcome to Navigating the East, China and Pacific Perspectives. Today we delve into a pivotal aspect of China's development, rapid urbanization, and its profound socio-cultural implications. I'm Cassandra Herno. My background is in geography and environmental studies, as well as international relations with a focus on Chinese politics and culture. And I'm joined by
Ethan Peisel, an expert in journalism and media production.
Together, we'll explore how China's urban transformation is reshaping societies and identities. First segment we're going to pop into real fast is, what happened historically? How did it evolve historically? And that's something to really think about when you think about these things. It's like, what happened historically?
Yeah, how did urbanization in ancient China compare to what we see today?
Well, ancient cities were vibrant centers of commerce, culture, and governance. They were often enclosed by walls that defined their boundaries. You see that with the Great Wall of China, made to keep the Mongolians out. And they were, we can fast forward to the late 20th century. What pivotal changes occurred that propelled China towards rapid urbanization? I mean, if you really think about it, what were they, right?
Special economic zones like um, Shenzhen, Shenzhen became symbols of China's ambition to modernize. How do these reforms impact urban development?
With urbanization rates skyrocketing, was something to think about. We needed those going forward. You need special economic zones. And we had the China opening up in the 70s and 80s, starting to open up to the world and needed to modernize their economy. Well, if you think about it, you had urbanization rates that were just skyrocketing. So you see differences between ancient China and modern China.
How did the
Massive
shift?
differences.
Hmm?
What's a massive differences?
Hmm. How did the shift from a planned economy to a market-oriented one influence the pace and scale of urbanization in China?
Oh, massively, massively. From a planned economy, they're able to plan everything out. Like this goes there, that goes there, and one that's market oriented, it influenced like people moving significantly. I mean, look at like Shanghai, right? Financial capital, everything just started. Once the needs and the market oriented economy kicks in, it's huge. Everyone started moving from rural China and the rural suburbs, so you really draw in this rapid urbanization of people compared to like what they used to do in old Soviet style economy.
Hmm. Interesting.
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
China's urbanization journey reflects not only economic ambitions, but also profound social cultural transformations, shaping identities and community dynamics across the country.
That's a really good question. You have different like societies and different cultures and how they do things like in a way, right? So everything's kind of multifaceted, to think about. Something I really think about is how it just goes beyond. Historically, you think about China's urban centers have been basically bastions of culture and intellect exchange, That's where their collective identity is rooted. However, with rapid industrialization and urban growth since the late 20th century, the cities have changed significantly. The influx of rural migrants, seeking economic opportunities, you got to think about that one. They've led to demographic shifts and cultural diversification within urban communities. These migrations not only altered the societal economic landscape, but also, introduced new cultural practice and identities. So you think enrich the fabric of urban life. It's changed significantly. You have where urbanization has just reshaped entire community dynamics. They've what? that also creates challenging traditional family structures, right? And community ties prevalent in rural areas. Now you're shifting out entire societal changes. There are challenges in urbanization too, social inequality, wealth disparities. There's things that something to think about. Opportunities for but it does present opportunities for culture exchange, innovation, preservation of cultural heritage. So there's good things to rapid development, but there's definitely things to think about in the future.
What would you say is the main factors that have contributed to rapid urbanization?
The main factors?
Yeah.
Hmm, that's a really good question. I would say there's several main factors. Industrialization has been one of them. That's one to really think about. That's something to really think about. Industrializations when I come into play here. You have to think about economic opportunities in urban areas, right? Those are some factors. Rural to urban migration, people seeking better lives, conditions, and job opportunities. As well as government policies aimed to promote urban development, modernization. And the CPC has been very, very big on that over the years. You can see it with their development. They've combined a significant increase in urban population. I mean, yeah, I think it's over 60%, makes a substantial shift from historical rural dominance, right? Rural China.
Hmm. Can you elaborate on the motives behind the significant population movement?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I would think that something that really comes to mind would be economic opportunities, right? People who live in rural inhabitants migrate to cities in search of better jobs. That happens everywhere. If you're in rural, say America, and you want to move to the city for better jobs, there's more industry in the cities. It's kind of been that way. Better education and healthcare. That's common. If you look at where even college campuses are, they're mostly in urban areas. Very few are out in the middle of nowhere in the rural communities. The
Hmm.
standard of living, rural living is a lot less comfortable than urban living. I mean, same kind of differences. I'm sure rural China struggles with the same issues as you would rural America or rural in any country would. Housing, infrastructure, stuff like that. Also, social mobility is something to think about. When people are
Hmm.
moving into urban areas, they're trying to improve their socioeconomic status. They want to provide better opportunities for their children. And I think governments, especially in different systems, have done well. Reforms in the Hukou system have facilitated migration by relaxing restrictions on residency permits, which allow rural migrants to attain urban through household registration and access urban welfare benefits. So there's things that are easier for rural people to move in. They're escaping rural poverty. Family and social networks are sitting there and they're moving there, so they're relying on existing networks. I would say it's driven by a combination of things like economic, social, policy factors. I would say it's pretty much on par with what you see with the rest of the world.
So how has the expansion of cities affected the social and economic dynamics of both urban and rural areas?
I would say the expansions of cities through urban sprawl has profound impact. I mean, urban cities are rapidly expanding. This leading to increased congestion, environmental degradation, and challenges in providing adequate infrastructure and services to a growing population. Like, these things are just not, rapid urbanization isn't, or even urbanization in general is not. There's always downfall. There's always
Mhm.
things you have to deal with, and especially in like it can create strain on traditional neighborhoods, transform to displace people in new developments. Economically, however, I do believe cities benefit from increased economic activity and job creation.
Okay, I see. What are some challenges and opportunities associated with managing urban sprawl in a country as vast as in population in China?
Oh man, there's a lot. One I think right away is this infrastructure strain. Rapid expansion leads to increased pressure on transportation utilities and public service. Like you need transit, right? With more people, you really need to get around. Environmentally, you got to think it contributes to pollution. You're losing green spaces, and natural resources ultimately suffer. And I think when it comes to dense population, social inequality, you start seeing those disparities in education, housing, and healthcare between urban and periphery areas. I think there are opportunities though. So I always want to say there are opportunities. I would say that sustainable development is one.
Mhm.
Economic growth, being able to drive regional development. I think innovation is another one I would think about being able to be innovative and integrate technology in urban planning. That's one I would think there are benefits to.
Okay. I have another question for you. Considering these trends, what are some projections for the future of urbanization in China, and how might these developments impact global urbanization trends?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say that projections for urban in China, what I've seen doing some of the research, it's probably suggesting that continued rapid growth with an emphasis on sustainable development, smart city initiatives, and urban rural integration. I mean, you can see continued doing that, and they're likely to influence global urbanization trends. This is by setting benchmarks or managing population growth, economic expansion, and environmental sustainability in densely populated regions across the planet. That's something I would see. But again, like anything, there's challenges and there's growth.
Okay. Well, urbanization in China continues to evolve, shaping its social, economic, and environmental landscape on both local and global scales. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think that is, I think it's great in a way. I think there's things to think about economically, and I think there's also issues and comes of different things with it, especially in terms of that's a tough one. It's a tough one to answer because then you have to think about what can happen in terms of landscape degradation, and you can have how can it benefit economically? I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that with urbanization, you have a lot of really cool opportunities economically to better your lives and social life, society. But then you have to worry about environmental issues. So as long as you can come up with systems to be able to do both, I think it's a great thing.
Okay.
But if you can't, you end up with just mass cities. An example I want to throw in there, an example I think you're starting to see it, but it's improving. I think is probably like in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, but they're starting to get there, right? So those are markets I would try to watch and see, and areas that I would see that are going to benefit from China's urbanization.
Okay. Well, industrialization has also become like a driving force, and I want your opinion. How has industrialization influenced urban growth in China?
Has significantly influenced urban growth, especially economic activities in cities. Like who wouldn't want more jobs, Who's not coming for more? You're always attracting real migrants. They always want employment, right?
Mhm.
You want to be able to foster rapid urban development. You want to be able to sit there and support in critical infrastructure, industrial infrastructure. Yeah, it's been like I said, I mean, you're transforming these cities into a manufacturing economic activity. most of your high-end products in America are just they're made in the same Chinese factory in urban area, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's extensive urban growth. You know, even then you got just not even in, you know, and it's able to expand to accommodate industrial zones, residential areas for the workers, supporting infrastructure. Oh, there's a lot of things I would think. Creating jobs. Yeah, but you have an influx of rural residents. I mean, there's a lot of things that industrialization and urbanization have kind of really been a good part of.
Okay. Well, government policies such as the UNCO system, reform and urbanization plans play a significant role in managing urban growth and influence population migration patterns. How have these policies shaped urban development strategies in China?
Government policies such as the Hukou system, they've reformed and they've shaped urban development strategy in China by basically facilitating controlled migration from rural to urban areas to regulating population flows, and they're guiding spatial distribution of economic activities. Like the system, you know, for instance, has relaxed restrictions on residency permits, which allow rural migrants to legally settle in cities and access urban welfare development. I don't know if you know this about China, but you have to have residency permits for everything.
Mm,
You can't just like go move to a town, right? You have to have a residency permit. So you can visit, but you might not be able to live there, you know. And there's things you could do, right? You have to update your system. It's kind of like Japan. You have to register your household. Same thing, right? So it's allowing them to settle from these areas, you know, the urbanization plans at national, local levels outline infrastructure development, land use, environmental policies, just like other places. But they also support sustainable development growth and address social inequalities. And I think they influence the overall trajectory of urban development in China. I think these policies have done quite well,
okay.
from my experiences at least.
Mhm. Well, economic incentives in SCZs and coastal regions have attracted investment in accelerated urbanization. Could you elaborate on how these incentives have contributed to the urban growth in China?
Oh, number one, it's tax breaks, preferential policies for foreign investment, streamlined regulations, and improved infrastructure. Look at Shenzhen, you know? I mean, it went from like nothing to just a picture of Shenzhen. You're like, oh my goodness, you're
Mhm.
attracting investment, you're getting literally, you're getting good business. You're getting, what was it, Foxconn? I think was it Foxconn? I think it's Foxconn that's in Shenzhen. Yeah, Foxconn. So they're in Shenzhen. And they're, you know, look at Foxconn. You know what they do, right?
Not sure.
Up until this year, they made all your Apple products.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were in, pretty sure they were in Shenzhen. Yeah, that Shenzhen. So ultimately, while you
Mhm.
spend a bunch of money on an Apple, you can get the Foxconn version for a fraction of a dollar. But you know, their Apple's moving it out, so Apple's going to be even more expensive. Something to think about.
Yeah.
Apple's trying to move out of China, but you need cheap manufacturing. Like you wouldn't be able to sustain that worldwide, right? You have
Yeah.
to have tax incentives and growth, especially in economic. You can't build everything just in your home country, right? We all know
Mhm.
that's not realistic. We wouldn't have jobs. We wouldn't. Nobody would. You could never pay the cost. You know, look at an apple. If that was made in America, it would be what, thousands of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like tens
Yeah,
of
you make a
thousands of
point.
dollars. It'd be a $10,000 phone. You know. to pay the labor cost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why having these SEZs in China do great for foreign investment. Because one, they're not getting they're not poor either because they're getting paid in yuan and they're doing fine. And then you have economic incentives where not only that, you build infrastructure, you're building high speed rail, all these things are being built. So I honestly, I think I say back to the question, I think these incentives have massively contributed.
Okay. Well, these factors collectively shape urban development strategies and influence population migration and patterns, reflecting China's dynamic urbanization journey. How do you feel about that?
That's a good question. So that's a very good question. I personally think I think it's had a lot of different kind of influence, right? So
Hmm.
like they collectively shape urban development strategies, you know. If you're having industrialization that's driving economic activity and urban growth, and you have government policies like the HUQ system, which reforms and regulates population movement, residential rights. You have
Yeah.
economic incentives and SEZs and coastal region, they attract investment. Of course, they've all contributed to the rapid expansion of urban areas in China.
Okay. Well, beyond economic growth, rapid urbanization profoundly impacts cultural identities, community dynamics, and social structures. How do socio-cultural factors intersect with China's urbanization journey?
You know, as cities rapidly expand, traditional neighborhoods and cultural heritage sites, they do face pressure for modernization and urban renewal. This happens all across the world and everywhere. However, I think urbanization promotes cultural exchanges and innovation, but I feel like it does create these challenges where tradition and main values kind of find their place or maybe not, you know? So there's this kind of tug and pull effect, you know, of these. You see that here in America, where like you look at like urban areas and rural areas. People in America just don't really think about it because values of rural America, values of urban America, right? They're always fighting. You see it, don't you? Know what I'm talking about, Ethan, right?
I think so.
So, like, if you look at politics and you look at lifestyles and you look at all of these things when it comes to like cultural values and different sites, like say urban
Yeah.
America or rural America, urban America believes in a lot different things, right? And then you go to rural America and it's like you're hitting each other in the face, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the same in China. You know, rural China has different values than this urban areas.
Okay.
It's like that
That's
anywhere. So these traditional values you know, they're challenging these traditions and values. So it does create. So you have this one hand, you got economic opportunity development. On the other hand, you got cultural preservation and social cohesion, right? You need to find that area that fits both. That's the sweet spot, hitting both. But to do that, it takes time. It's a complex intersection, and it's something that really takes time to create that economic progress, cultural heritage, and social harmony. And that's something that takes a lot of time and well thought process. Because one, you don't want to get rid of those things in the name of the economy, but you also don't want to get rid of the economy in the name of those things because then you're broke
hmm
and then you create a bunch of massive problems. So yeah, you have to be able to juggle it all and balance it to the point that it's healthy for everyone.
yeah. Okay. So I have another one for you.
Sure.
How does rapid urbanization impact community dynamics and social bonds in Chinese cities?
Oh, that was a good one. I would say that they significantly impact them by urban, I mean, rapid urbanization can disrupt traditional community dynamics and social bond. As rural migrants flock to urban areas seeking economic opportunity, neighborhoods change dramatically. And then you end up with cultural diversification. Its influx can cause strains on existing social structures. It can create challenges in fostering a sense of community among diverse populations. Diversity is amazing, but it's really difficult when things change overnight.
Yeah.
So you have rapid urbanization that leads to physical transformation of urban landscape. Look at cities. These are you're displacing established communities and altering neighborhood identities. And local governments and community organizations, they play a massive role in this. They're the one that has to promote inclusive urban environments, supporting community integration. Ultimately, it's up to them to enhance social cohesion and bring it together amidst the dynamic changes you're seeing.
Hmm.
So it's a tough one, but I think it has, like I said, I think it's significantly impacted by rapid urbanization. I mean, not just me, the data supports that.
Yeah.
The research
Okay.
supports those things. Ultimately, my opinion is cool, but if we want to know what the data supports, because that's the real question, that's the real answer.
Hmm. How can Another one for you? How can policymakers and urban planners effectively address these social cultural challenges, I should say, while promoting economic development?
You think about cultural preservation, that's one strategy. I would say there's quite a few strategies here you can do. One would be cultural preservation, implementing policies that basically just prioritize preservation of cultural heritage sites and traditional neighborhoods. I miss urban development. Example would be historic buildings, zoning regs, regulations that protect cultural districts, incentivize for community-based cultural initiatives. Another one, and I don't see enough of it, and I think it needs to be more of it, is community engagement. And this is just not just in China, I mean everywhere. All for community engagement. You need to present this sense of ownership and allow residents to have a voice when it comes to their neighborhoods and development and the social cultural impacts. Social infrastructure is one. You got community centers, public spaces, rec facilities. They create social bonds. They're important. Education is another one, a strategy you could use. Promote cultural education and awareness campaigns that highlight importance of cultural diversity and heritage conservation. Sorry,
Mhm.
gotta itch real quick. You can edit that out, right? Right. Another one would be educating residents and stakeholders about the benefits of cultural preservation, which can garner support and foster shared commitment to socio-cultural sustainability. A couple more I can think off the top of my head. Probably equitable development, that's a big one. Thinking about what are the economic benefits from this for marginalized communities, addressing income disparities, monitoring and adaptations on monitoring these issues and collecting data is important in the government. So that's what I would think. Just some. There are more, but just some that I could think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
But there's quite a few plans I would think. Hey, there's more. I would like to read more and learn more.
Well, how I see it, balancing economic growth with cultural preservation and social cohesion is crucial for be sustainable.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
I agree. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally
Okay.
agree with that.
Well, economic prosperity often comes at a cost, though. rapid urbanization in China has led to widening income disparities between urban and rural areas.
Yeah.
How has this disparity affected social dynamics?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Mm, I would say it's quite important, especially when
Okay.
it comes to balancing economic growth, cultural preservation,
Mm-hmm.
being able to have that, like, being able to have that kind of sense of control. Um, I'm trying to think here. Let's see. I mean, you have to balance economic growth and cultural preservation, create social cohesion, right? Like I said before, it's a big giant balancing act. You want to be able to, you can attract tourism through culture, but then you want to be able to create these economic opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to create this sense of cultural richness and social harmony, but you also don't want your residents to make nothing, and add stress and add issues. So like ultimately, I feel like it needs to be balanced. I think it's really a question that's really complex. Looks easy on paper, but I think it's complex.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, government policies play a crucial role in addressing these disparities, in promoting inclusive urban development that considers both economic and social dimensions. What are some effective policies measures in this regard?
Ooh, that's another really, it's a really good question. Let me think here. I mean, kind back to the hukou system. I mean, yeah, he grants urban residency rights of rural migrants. It provides them access,
Mm-hmm.
affordable housing programs in China. I would say community-based development is another one. Public transportation infrastructure. I can go on and on. There's a lot. Yeah, cultural preservation incentives. We've got social services, environmental sustainability, creating green spaces. There's so many different things that could be done here to create, to address these disparities, I think, in a productive way. I mean, governments can foster inclusive urban development. I mean, it's easy to do. I think China does a decent job, at least from what I've seen. I'd like to learn more.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead, sustainable urban development will be paramount. How can China balance economic growth with environmental conservation and social equality?
I think something we're really seeing around the world in a lot of places, and I think is green infrastructure. I think it's if you're going to build in big urban areas, you need to be able to mitigate urban heat islands and improve air quality and enhance biodiversity. One of my friends is really doing a cool urban heat island project right now. I learned a lot about urban heat islands from them, and China definitely suffers from them. Renewable energy, you want to be able to promote renewable energy and especially in urban areas, and you can lower emissions. You want to be able to use smart planning, urban planning. You want to be able to optimize your land use, reduce sprawl, promote mixed use developments. You want to add environmental regulations, enforce them, make people pay for the damage they're causing, increase public transportation. The way you're not locking cars down on freeways all the time. China's public transportation, Shanghai,
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I know firsthand. Shanghai Metro is awesome. Loved every second. Public, like I said, social inclusion, affordable housing, and you definitely want community, you want to be able to make it regardless of economic status, right?
Yeah.
And community engagement is important because without community engagement, nothing ever gets done. Number one thing is community engagement.
Okay. What role can international collaboration play in addressing global urbanization challenges?
A
Drawing
lot.
from, you know, looking at China's experiences.
I would say a lot. I mean, I couldn't even wait. I was so excited for this question. I mean, they're crucial, crucial, crucial. Like, you got to think it's navigating, you're navigating challenges that are expansive and you're navigating hard issues. And one, knowledge sharing, capacity building. You can't do
Mhm.
anything without capacity building. You want a technology transfer. You want to be able to transfer tech to get this done. You want to exchange policy ideas because ultimately green policies are not interesting. They're not just local to China. China can export them and import them. Financial support. You got to have international partnership to mobilize financial resources. If you don't have resources, you don't have anything, right? You want to be able to use joint research initiatives. You see this all the time in urban planning and development. You want to have joint urban, climate action. And you want to, and I think is the most underappreciated thing, and I think is one of the most important things, and it gets left behind, is cultural exchange.
Mm,
Cultural exchange can enrich the urban development strategies. You learn a with through cultural exchanges. One of the most important thing is people to people exchanges. When it comes to international relations, when it comes to international anything, it's important to understand people. You
I agree. Oh, this has been fun, going over this, learning a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just the start. We got many, many more episodes too. I mean, if you look at it, there's so many different things, especially when it comes to just, exploring complex interplay between rapid urbanization, social cultural impacts. I mean, we have it's you have to balance both, right? You got to think. You got, like I said earlier, you got economics, and then you got social and cultural, and you got to find a middle. And if once you can find the middle, it's good to go. But
Yes.
you have to be able to understand that those dynamics are complex globally. They're complex. They're hard to do. You can't just move everyone to a city, right?
Mhm.
You gotta think you can't just move everyone to a township and be like, okay, we're all happy. Like, you have to be able to balance cultural issues and balance these issues and be able to do this to the point that it's important.
Yeah, I do feel understanding these dynamics is crucial for navigating the challenges and opportunities of urban growth. And
Mhm.
I think, this could be said not just for China, but across the globe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And I feel like China's a good example of what can be successful. I mean,
Hmm.
China, like I said, I watched them build an airport and I watched them build Shanghai Pudong Terminal 2 in such a short amount of time. It was insane.
Hmm.
Like,
Well,
I was shocked.
hmm.
But that's what you get.
Yeah.
It was built so quickly. You literally built so quickly. Like, China has been able to do some crazy work. They've done some crazy work here, and I think one is something that I don't think they get enough credit for is how fast they've been able to build things and how different things. Another one I really want to mention with urbanization in China is that a lot of rural urbanization, and you don't see a lot of this, was brought on because of Western China. A lot of Western China is very. If you ever had a national emergency, it would be really difficult to get people out of there.
Mm-hmm.
because rural China is really mountainous. It's really, really extreme conditions, right? So a lot of people live where there's jobs. You can't really build factories in mountains and extreme weather. So ultimately, even if like a natural disaster happened, getting these people would be really complex. So and then China's been doing trying to force them into safer neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of the issue we're seeing here with urbanization. You got to be able to rescue people, and if you can't, so for China's situation, it's a little more complex based on terrain.
Yeah.
And China's massive, massive country, huge. But China gets a lot of issues that they don't deserve when it comes to like misinformation.
Mm.
I would say there's a lot of positives of what they've done. I mean, look at their economic growth.
Would you say that's the biggest one?
I mean, one of them. I mean, China's economy is in. I mean, yeah, it's done well. It's been struggling, but to be honest, most economies are kind of. I mean, I wouldn't call it. I would think it's stabilizing, not struggling. I think it's stabilizing. It's
Kind of
not
on par with the
slowing.
US, wouldn't you say?
I don't know. I mean, if I read things in foreign policy, sure, but like, I absolutely can't stand foreign policy magazine.
Oh.
But like they're so anti China. Like you need to really like there's some sites out there that are like okay, they just really don't like China. Foreign policy, heritage foundation. I can go on and on and on. I don't trust those for nothing. But like China's economy is doing fine, urbanization has helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're doing fine. Like yeah. Urbanization is going to increase China's potential for economic development. It's been an essential factor since '78.
What would you say is the number one thing that stands out with them in urbanization to you?
Economic development.
Is economic? Yeah.
China opening up from a Soviet style economy to a US style economy, to a Western economy, opening up post Soviet has done
Mm.
wonders while keeping Chinese characteristics and social characteristics. So China does a very good job of keeping. I like what China does with their system with with socialism and Chinese characteristics. And the reason that is because one, you create a government that adheres to Chinese values, right? These are
Yeah.
values that China has, but they don't have to be pure socialists. So they were able to keep their own culture embedded in these government policies. People can say what they want about me, but I don't care. I think China's done a fantastic job government-wise,
Do you think it's an
especially
evolving government? I
what?
mean, do you think it's a government that's evolving?
I think so. Of course, I think so. I think my opinion is I think that socialism with Chinese characters has worked. It's been working since 1982. It's been working. I feel like urbanization is a result of that because economic, ideas and different things you're seeing on display with policies. I think so.
You think it's just
Are there negative things with if like the Chinese government? Of course. I mean, what government doesn't, right?
true?
Everyone has issues. I mean, there's no government. No government is like perfect. Everyone has problems. Everyone has different thoughts and processes. Um, there's issues with every government issue. I mean, in fairness, we're not that far off from World War II and post colonial issues.
Yeah, yeah. And Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the
That
government's
kind
doing
of gets
okay.
me to
Go ahead,
yeah.
sorry.
I was gonna say, man, it was like a I'm kind of going off topic, but yeah, you can see how
I
China gets a bad rep, but you know, you
get a
do look
bit.
at the colonial issues wasn't that long ago, and I don't think they get as bad as a rep as China does.
Yeah, I mean, and China's never invaded another country. China was the colonized, not the colonizer. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Like, but ultimately, but I mean, it isn't really off topic. It isn't because urbanization has to do a lot with that.
oh
Like
yeah,
urbanization has some kind of play in the government style, you know?
mm-hmm,
I think what's really funny is if you look, you ever, yes, now this one is off topic, but if you talk about China, you'll hear the term CPC, or CCP, and that's not even the real name of the government. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's not even like you could always tell someone who hates the government of China, they don't even get the name correct. Like no offense, but they didn't even get the name right.
mm-hmm,
Like even the US doesn't even get the name right. Like it isn't even the name of the government. That's why like I don't listen to Council on Foreign Relations and all that crap. It's literally the CPC, Communist Party of China. It's literally the official name of the government. So like they don't even get the name right. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because but like ultimately I feel like there's this giant misconception between China and the world, and I feel like people pick on China for no reason. And I feel like there's this misunderstanding. I feel like China does, even in urbanization, I feel like China does the best they can to, keep people in good shape. They try. I mean, it's hard. You got billions of people. It's kind of complicated.
mm-hmm,
Same with urbanization, right? Got a lot of people living in a small area. Of course, it's complicated. It's not
yeah,
easy. But if anything, I feel like China gets a bad rap for no reason. I feel like they have to defend themselves. I mean, yeah, if you look at urbanization, even if you go on the embassy of China, what's the mission? Number
mm-hmm,
one thing in China from the preamble, the CPC Central Committee, it's putting people first.
yeah,
Literally what it says. Good life, a good life for the people. So I feel like they're talking about how bad China is, but then literally the first sentence of the preamble of the Central Committee and their duties is to provide a good life for the people.
okay,
Of course they're Marxist government, but they want to defuse risk and overcome challenges. So they're trying not to have risk. You're correcting mistakes. Seems like a government uphold that wants to do well for the world here. Building a global community of shared future. I've never read, honestly, I've done a lot of work. I did a research project on Chinese government, and I've never read anything that would be like, oh my God, what a bad government. And I've read hundreds, hundreds and thousands of Chinese documents and papers. And nothing in my mind is like, wow, what a terrorist organization. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
Nothing in my mind and I've ever read has claimed them as a bad government. But again, are they flawed? Sure. Is urbanization hard? Sure. But I feel like it's good to judge governments based on your own experiences. I feel like that's good for urbanization too. If there was if you didn't have if you didn't have or if you didn't have a good economic opportunities, you wouldn't have urbanization, right? If there were no jobs, you wouldn't have urbanization. You know what I mean, Ethan?
Yeah.
So, but I feel like I've got faith in the government to like at least keep doing it. However, other flaws, of course, all governments have flaws. I'm not going to say that China's government's better than any other government, but I will say that like urbanization is a big one, and I do stand
Like
by
you're
that.
just saying they're not as bad as people make them out to be, but they're not like
To be honest
they
with
shouldn't be
you,
held on a high pedestal because they are just, just like any government
to be
still
to be
going
honest with
through
you,
the
most people who say that China's evil and terrible have never set foot in China.
Mhm. I
And
honestly think the best way to learn anything is to
they've
go
never,
out find the truth yourself, go out there, talk to people or talk to people that are in that type of field and just, you know, you can't just get you have to find the source yourself if you want the truth.
yeah, and I feel like most, it's not even just China. You can say this about a lot of places. Most people who find a place to be evil or bad tend to have never stepped foot in that country,
Yeah.
or they don't know anything about that country. Very
Or
few,
it's just historical stigma.
yeah, or
They know
things that
what they
have
know
happened.
from the past and and
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. But again, what does it have to do with urbanization? Everything, because if you don't, urbanization literally benefits from all of those things and have different things from them, you know? Environmental policies also stem from old government policies and issues and stigma and everything else.
Mhm.
So I feel like ultimately, at the end of the day, that without urbanization is big. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of different things. It's sometimes it's hard to think about, but like it's really important that some things that may seem related but don't seem related, but they are related. I think urbanization improves government reputation.
Okay.
I mean, urbanization, it can make political challenges hard, but I feel like you have government ineffectiveness and anti-corruption and bureaucratic inefficiency, sure. But I think ultimately you have, like, it can maintain stability and uphold rule of law, ability to do these things. Rule of law and urbanization is so important. It needs to be applied equally. And I feel like in America, we don't really apply the law equally.
Mhm.
I mean, we have a reputation for that. But a lot of countries do too, not just America. I think another one is that you have things where you can literally have urban planning and regulation improvements. So there's things where government is involved, reputation is involved. Urbanization in one, I think I didn't really want to go too far into it because I mean, this is a forgot to mention this is like a series. So I didn't really want to go too I didn't want to go too down the rabbit hole into like other because next week is going to be like social cultural transformation and like urban spaces. So I didn't really. We had a whole list. We got a whole list of this and future directions. So we kind of want to limit what we say on what we're doing yet because we have a cool podcast coming for cool episode for the rest. But
Okay.
um,
Sounds
I
good.
yeah, but I feel like misunderstandings are the reason you have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I don't feel like inherently urbanization just like I said, it's multifaceted. And there's so many issues it creates, but it's also positive because you want to live in urban areas. Can you imagine if everything was rural? You wouldn't have jobs.
Mhm.
How do you have innovation? How do you have innovation? How are people going to innovate things in the middle of the rural America where you got no people? and there's no education.
Some may just see it as, um, I mean, I guess we could add a counter argument. Do you think maybe if everything becomes urbanization, there could be a lack? Some people might feel there could be a lack of culture or might dissipate
Yeah, you
because
need to be careful
more
with
will kind
that.
of hold on to that.
Yeah, you need to be careful with that, and then you need to be careful with environmental issues. But like,
Yes.
if you can do those things and manage your time and manage what you need, I think it's okay. But I mean, you have to have jobs in the end. If people don't have jobs, like, what happens, right? If like you don't have any income,
That's kind of a, mm, I guess you can look at as give something up to gain something new, but
yeah, you need jobs. You need jobs, right? You need
yeah,
jobs. That's the thing. Because you can't. You gotta have jobs, right? I mean, urban areas are reason you have jobs. Like that's it's tough. It's a toughie, dude. It's a toughie. But I never said solving global issues was easy.
yeah. It's,
Everyone thinks so. Every non-politician has an easy answer until it's not, right?
yeah, some
Everyone's the president and gives an opinion until they've never dealt with it, you know?
there's always going to be a wedge in the plan.
Yeah,
There's, I mean, at least something to make it little tricky, but
yeah,
I
exactly.
nothing's perfect, but jobs are important. Opportunities for people to, you know, evolve with the country is important.
Yeah, and
You
like
you just don't want to lose yourself as you evolve with the country.
I think for China's situation, it's like they were so close for so long that it was building this rapid urbanization and trying to catch up,
Mm,
you know? They're trying to catch up to like what the US was or some other thing. So they went from a Soviet style system to changing.
okay.
So you wonder, right?
Yeah.
You wonder. So that's my opinion. That's what I think. That's what I think. Well, cheers, buddy. Here's another Qing Bao to live the dream. Ah, well, thanks everyone. This is a great podcast. We're really happy with it, and we got many more on Chinese urbanization and culture. We're excited to find the differences and the differences and the connections with urbanization, culture, and socioeconomic issues, and many more. We'll be back next weekend. We got 2 episodes coming. We're really excited for this, and we'll have some really cool information.
Thank you to those who are able to join.
Yeah, definitely. It was really a lot of fun. I'm excited for more.
Mhm. Think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's pretty exciting. We'll bring Tony back on soon. He's going to be ready for us. Maybe we'll bring him for urbanization of housing.
Oh,
I think you'd like that
awesome.
one. So